going to take my mask off because there's no one within 6 feet of me. And I want to welcome everyone to tonight's presentation. I want to go through a few of our new little strange house rules that we have thanks to COVID. We have a podium over there where you can go if you wish to ask questions at the end. And if you have questions and you want to just, we need you to go over to the podium. That's because it's being recorded and live streamed, and we want to be sure everyone hears you and the questions are being reflected correctly so everyone is participating. I want to thank everyone who took the time to come tonight and those who have taken the time to log on virtually. So tonight we're going to talk about our budget hearing for our revote. Next slide, please. Our agenda will be, we're going to talk about the budget changes from the November 9th vote, the budget detail, the estimated, I just had it show like that, listen. Okay, like it's on 2 screens. Thank you. Okay, we're going to talk about the budget detail, the estimated tax impact for homeowners, the ballot language, and the absentee ballot process, because this process will be much different than what voters experienced for the June 9th vote. Next slide, please. So the total changes from the June 9th vote. We started out on June 9th asking the Proposition 1 to be $32,364,315. Within that total value was Proposition, actually there were 2 and 3, I'm sorry for the typo. Proposition number 2, which was buses and equipment and technology. They were $674,272 for buses and equipment. Technology was $364,470. So the amount that the voters authorized us to take from savings for these purchases was $1,041,742. Then the Board of Education asked me, we know this is a very streamlined budget. We know that there was not a lot of excess. So we found $10,000 in miscellaneous budget codes that we could cut. That's okay. And $27,236 for maintenance summer help, which we did not hire this year. So our budgetary cuts were $37,236. So our $32,364,315 less $1,041,742 less $37,236 gets us to our revised budget number, back a slide, of $31,285,337. Now I'm ready to go to the next slide. So we're going to look at our expenditure categories as we always do. Now, because we've already taken out the proposition and the money that was spent from the voter authorized reserves, I restated last year's numbers so the comparative would be easier for people to understand. Rather than having the extra money that we spent on bus purchases last year, those were removed from this presentation. So our general support is the superintendent's office, it's the business office, it's buildings and grounds, it's legal fees, it's insurance, it's all the infrastructure behind the scenes. So last year in 1920, what was adopted was $3,613,853. This year that goes up by $290,497 to $3,904,350. Instructional, everything for our kids is in the instructional line. It has everything from the principal's offices to the textbooks that the kids get to the supplies they get. All of that, the teachers, they're all included in the instructional line. That's $15,742,327 last year, and it's going up to $16,006,341, a difference of $264,014. Pupil transportation, that has gone from $1,600,000 $55,075 to $2,328,566. This is higher than the original budget. This is the $673,491. As you can see in the next lines, we had some savings that came in from our employee benefits, things that we thought we might need to have that we didn't. So we moved that into the busing. We do not know. CDC guidelines are very restrictive for what can be on the buses. And I just want to let everybody know this presentation is available on board docs right now. Anyone can go on it through the public domain and see it. So you don't have to take a lot of notes if you don't want to, or things like that. So when we look at that, our transportation has gone up, but our real expectation is that we're going to need more drivers and potentially more aides in a new COVID world. And until we get to where we know what we're doing, we budgeted appropriately for the CDC guidelines. Employee benefits, debt service, civic activities. Every year somebody's like, what's a civic activity? Civic activities are when people use our facilities, the fitness center when it was open, when someone comes in and they want to rent space and we have buildings and grounds maintenance people, or they might even want to rent like the auditorium and we use the information technology specialists to run our equipment so nothing happens to it and we charge back. If somebody would want to rent the cafeteria, if you rent our cafeteria, someone who has Department of Health knowledge has to be on site to make sure you're following all the rules. So those expenditures are included in civic activities. And then we have interfund transfers, which in essence, they are the money that moves out of the general fund when we do a capital outlay, and they're an accounting procedure. If there's a loss in the cafeteria, which often we have, we support the cafeteria with general fund monies. So what we're asking tonight, and what we will be asking voters on July 28th, is our total expenditures to go from $30,744,216 up $541,121 to $31,285,337, a 1.76% increase. Next slide, please. Every year, how are we spending the money? What is a three-part budget? A three-part budget is a mandated information that I have to share that shows you that 74% of the budget is program, 16% is capital. Now, when I talk about capital here, capital is buildings and grounds. It's also debt service. And debt service, just so everyone remembers, is the mortgage payment that the school pays for the renovations on the buildings. When we do a capital project, we take out a bond, and that is our mortgage payment. And then there's the administrative, excuse me, component, which is 10%. And the administrative component is made up of many things. It's made up of the salaries of all the administrators in the district, the secretarial staff, the accounting staff, the auditors, the lawyers, the postage for all the buildings, the infrastructure that we purchase through BOCES to get a savings on for running the background of our network and all of our support softwares that are used by administration. Some of those are softwares that we have because we like to have them, and accounting makes sense to have an accounting software. And some of them are software that we have specifically so that we can meet the mandates of New York State in giving them their information. And then some of the other things that are in the administrative portion are, we have the annual budget vote. That's considered administrative. The Board of Education, the liability insurance, that was the big questions that I was hearing from people, that why is there so much liability insurance? Because this is the first time it's been accounted for in this method, because our new carrier breaks down the bill differently. How they break down the bill is how my auditors expect to see it when I put it in the accounting software. So the other thing we had was we moved an administrator. Last year we had a 100% athletic director. She left and took a position in another district. We hired a new athletic director, but The athletic director is only half-time athletics, and he's half-time assistant principal in the junior, senior high. So when he's in the middle school, high school, half of his salary must now go up into administrative codes. So oftentimes it's not even a new expense, it's just a reshuffling of expense that's caused by utilizing our people in a more efficient manner. So we contract a lot of services through BOCES. BOCES is an organization that we receive state aid for contracting with. They have administrative and capital costs. Those become part of our share. We are one of, I think it's 27 component districts, and so we have to take a share of their admin costs. And so that becomes our admin costs. Things like our copiers, our staff development, right down to graduation supplies and awards for the little ones coming up through when they meet their early reading steps. Those are all considered administrative. But as you can see, they're not things that are all someone's salary, and they're not things that the average person might think of as administrative. Who would think that graduation supplies and the diploma covers that we give to all of our graduates would be an administrative cost? It's going right to the children. Next slide, please. So now I want to go back to this other slide, and you see the other talked about 3 parts, and this talks about general support, instructional, transportation, and then there's a grouping of costs that are not delineated out to each specific section. The difference here is that this is telling you kind of what we're using the funds for, and the 3 part is just telling you how New York State wants me to show you how much is going to the program, how much is going to capital for the buildings and grounds and the infrastructure there, and how much is for the back end infrastructure that keeps everything running smoothly. Next slide, please. So we're going to look at our year-to-year revenues. These were not adjusted from the past presentation because we did not make cuts to revenues. So we had our property school tax levy, and we're looking for a 1.82% increase, which is below our property tax cap of 2.1 for $270,648 in total. That total gets divided by using your assessments on your property. State aid has gone down, as it did in the last presentation, by $545,000, and it went down because we're anticipating less BOCES aid than what was projected. We're planning on less transportation aid because transportation aid is based on last year's expenditures. So if our expenditures and in the calculation our mileage is down, our revenue will come down as well. They will cut our state aid because the formula will be different. These formulas from state aid are very complex and they factor in a lot of things. Our federal aid will remain the same. And our miscellaneous, this miscellaneous item number, the 338,226, is a big number. We are blessed in our county that Erie County shares part of their sales tax revenue with school districts. And they're expecting that we're going to have a 20 to 25% decrease. They've already seen decreases, so we've adjusted our revenues appropriately. We did this in the first round because we knew that this was coming. Our interfund transfers are again another accounting of moving some of our funds that we already have that we can use to support the general budget. So you're looking at that and you're seeing huge decreases. Well, here comes the term no one, unless you're an accountant, really is going to understand. Appropriated fund balance. What happens is savings that have accumulated over the years, we were allowed to save up to 4% of the next year's budget in unappropriated fund balance. Well, this year we're saying we cannot close the gap without putting in money from that appropriated fund balance. We're going to take what was unappropriated and we're going to use it to lower taxes, which is exactly what unappropriated fund balance's definition is. It's fund balance which is your savings, used to offset taxes in the next year. And then our reserves, again, they've been restated. We've removed the equipment reserve, and we've removed the money for the technology reserve. And so we have reserves like workers' compensation, unemployment, and those reserves have gone up just a little bit, $20,810. And that's because we expect those expenditures to go up, and this is how we closed our gap without trying to hurt our long-term savings plan, in which we're preparing because we really don't know what's coming in the future. Now, we have heard rumors, and they have been spoken, that if there's a shortfall in revenue for the state of 1%, or an increase in expenditures over their budget of 1%, they've given the governor unilateral power through the Department of Budget, to come back and readjust our state aid value dollars. Now, mind you, they're already down $545,000 from last year without any additional cuts that can happen because of revenue shortfalls. There was a 14% revenue shortfall for the first period, which was April 30th, and they did not make a move to adjust last year's revenues for school districts. We were blessed to not have that happen. June 30th was the second one. I have not heard yet the results of operations. And December 31st, they would be able to do the same. And so we have to be cautious not to rely too heavily on the state aid, which in the next slide, if we could go to it, Lucinda, shows us where the money is coming from. State aid is right now represents 37.78% of the total revenues for our district. Property taxes, 48.47%. Way too high, but until we can get another revenue source and we can petition and get all they need to understand they must fund schools, it's hard for a district to have any control over that. Interfund transfers and appropriated fund balance are 6.05%, the highest they've been since I've been here. Miscellaneous is 5.62%, and we've kind of spoken that the majority of that is state aid. There is also another large line item in there is we bring special education students in from other districts. For example, if we have a class that is lacking 1 or 2 students and another district has 1 or 2 students, we charge them and we educate their students for them, and they pay the cost of the education. So those are the 2 main numbers in that miscellaneous. There are smaller numbers, like if you lose a book and you have to pay the cost of the book for the library, that's in there, things like that. But the 2 majors are our sales tax revenue and our billing for other special education. Federal aid is 0.01, that's our Medicaid dollars, and our reserves, they're 2.07%. And again, this is restated, taking out last year's equipment reserve and taking out this year's technology reserve. So can we go to the next sheet? So what is our proposed budget? I've talked a lot, and what I've come to know from people having sat in an audience years ago when I was a district treasurer, people go, well, I understood it all until the numbers started coming out. So let's try to wrap it up with numbers that you're going to be seeing. $31,285,337 is our balanced budget, inclusive of a 1.82 levy increase, which is a tax cap compliant budget. It's below the 2.1%. Next slide, please. So what is the estimated tax impact to homeowners? Our 2021 estimated true tax rate based on the total tax levy is $18.24 per thousand of assessment. Last year, our true tax rate was $17.92. The true tax rate increase per thousand is 32 cents per thousand. So if you own a $100,000 home, it's $32 a year, which equates to 62 cents a week. And again, this is based upon true value of property. If your assessment changes, if your star changes, if other items change in your tax bill, your numbers are going to change differently. If equalization rates, which come out right around August 1st, if those rates change, the equalization rate is New York State's attempt to say, no matter where you live, this is the value of your home in thousands of dollars. So they do an equalization rate so that if a house is under assessed because perhaps there hasn't been an assessment in a long time in your community, and another community has reassessed, they're trying to equalize them. So they call it an equalization rate. Next slide, please. So Proposition 1, the plain language, approved 2021 expenditures in the amount of $31,285,337. The legal impact of the budget vote is approving the expenditures. Next slide. I'm going to let it just sit for a minute so people can read it. But again, this is all the legalese of what you'll actually see on your proposed ballot. Next slide, please. Do you need an absentee ballot? If you do, please contact our district clerk. There's 2 ways to do it. Absentee ballot at edencsd.org or via phone at 992-3629, extension 2401. Now, earlier in the presentation and our agenda, we talked about getting an absentee ballot. And the next slides, I'm going to read off the slides so everyone can hear. That way you can see and hear the detail of what's going to happen when you go out and apply for an absentee ballot under education law. Next slide, please. Per Education Law 218B2A, Step 1, taxpayer must request an application for absentee ballot for the revote. They must complete the application and return to the district clerk 7 days prior to the vote, which is July 21st, if the ballot is to be mailed. Or they can go up till July 27th if the ballot is picked up at the district office by the voter. Each individual in your household who wants an absentee ballot, let's say, for example, you qualify for an absentee ballot and there's 3 people in the household and you're going on vacation. There, you have to request 3 applications. It's not an Eden rule. It's not something we've done to make things difficult. It's us following this education law. So step 3, you'll receive your absentee ballot either in the mail or in person, however you make arrangements for. You're going to return the absentee ballot via mail or in person. All ballots must be received in the office of the district clerk by July 28th at 5 p.m. So if you're delivering it or if it comes in the mail. If it comes in the mail on the 29th, it will not be counted. We cannot count it. And the election inspectors from the county will not allow it to be collected and counted. Next slide. So questions on the absentee ballot application. It's going to start out with, please check the appropriate box, and there's a little box there. So these are your choices. Am I or will be a patient in a hospital or unable to appear personally at the polling location on such day because of an illness or a physical disability? If this is your reason for requesting an absentee ballot, you would check this box. Well, let's say that doesn't apply to you. Let's go to the next one. I am or will be unable to appear personally at the polling location on such day because of a temporary illness or physical disability. New York State Governor's Executive Order number 202.47 provided that due to the prevalence and community spread of COVID-19, the potential for contraction of COVID-19 virus shall be deemed a temporary illness for the purpose of eligibility to vote as an absentee voter in a school budget revote held July 28, 2020. So if you just are concerned about coming out in public and you don't want to be around other people and stand in line to vote because you're concerned about COVID-19, you check this box. If not, we'll move to the next slide and see if other things apply to you. I will be outside the county because of duties, occupation, business, or studies. A statement explaining that the business or special circumstances which necessitate the absence must be included in the application. And there's a line statement and there's a couple of lines on it that you can write in your reason. If this doesn't apply to you, let's see about the next one. I will be on vacation outside of the district. The application must include the dates you expect to leave and return, the places you expect to be, your employer's name and address, or a statement that you are self-employed. So it asks simply the destination, the dates expected to leave and return, and your employer's name and address. If this applies to you, each individual that's going on vacation with you needs to have a separate application. Next slide, please. I am detained in jail, awaiting grand jury action, awaiting trial, or confined in prison after conviction for an offense other than a felony. The application must specify for which of those reasons you are in jail, and you need to put the reason. So you've selected your reason, you've checked the correct box, and now there's an attestation statement. I hereby declare that the foregoing is a true statement to the best of my knowledge and belief. And I understand that if I made any material false statements in the foregoing statement of application for absentee ballot, I shall be guilty of a misdemeanor. You need to date it, and most importantly, you need to sign it. If it's unsigned, we don't know who filled it out, and we cannot process your application. Next slide, please. So if you're going to come in district, you can vote at the Eden Senior High Auditorium Foyer from 9 a.m. through 9 p.m. And please wear your mask. Please come in and vote. However method you use, we would really like to see the community vote to help us to determine what your thoughts are on this important process. We reached out, we had a email address that was available for questions ahead of time. Do we have any questions, Mrs. McCarthy? Okay. So is there anyone in the audience who has some questions? And if you do, would you please come up to the other podium so that you can be heard by those that are virtually following the meeting? If there are no questions, that's all I have for my presentation tonight. I thank you all for coming, and I appreciate your interest in this important budget vote.